Hi, everyone out there in the strong communities and Strengths Genius world. Joe Self coming to you from Lima, Peru for our final show of this season. And I'm super excited that we're going to be wrapping up this season of 34. Goodness, I can't believe it's been 34 weeks already that we've been doing this, but we are getting ready to wrap this up with Mr. Jeff from, where are you, Jeff?
Nashville, Tennessee.
In Nashville, Tennessee. Excellent. So I'm going to let Jeff introduce himself. We now know where he is. So tell us a little bit more about you and what you do, Jeff, and share your top 5 with everyone.
Okay, well, I'm Jeff Gregg, and I am in Music City, USA, Nashville, Tennessee. And because this is Music City, I'm a talent agent at Creative Artist Agency. I've been here for about 22 years and in Nashville for about 25.
Oh, fantastic.
And my top 5 are responsibility, relator, positivity, achiever, and learner.
Ooh, nice combination. I like that there. I bet those serve you pretty well in what you do as well.
I would agree.
Fantastic. Great. So we start off every week. We're here today to talk about your responsibility talent and close out our year with responsibility, which I kind of think is a fun theme to close out with. And those at Gallup say that people exceptionally talented in the responsibility theme take psychological ownership of what they say they will do. They are committed to stable values such as honesty and loyalty. And so we here at Strengths Genius love to celebrate and evaluate the talents as well. So if we were to celebrate responsibility, we love that your word is your bond, people trust you, you honor your commitments, and you're accountable. Does that sound about right?
100%.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Now, we also know that it can be a double-edged sword, right? And our talents aren't always serving us at their best, and they can go into overuse or cause problems for us. And so some questions we can ask ourselves to see if we're getting into that territory might be to evaluate by, am I micromanaging? Do I have clear boundaries? Am I overcommitted? When do I say no?
So I will tell you that I'm harder on myself when it comes to accountability.
Okay.
And that ties into, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I will probably kill myself doing it. But I've learned to have grace for others in that area. And that actually comes from my experience around the strengths themes and understanding that everybody's not going to operate the way I do. So hard on myself, yes. Others, no. I will tell you that I have learned in the past 4 years, which is when I took the test, to say no more often, because I know if I say yes, I'm going to take on that responsibility.
Sure.
And I've learned that, you know what, other people can do the job better than I can. So I should say no. If that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely. That ability to delegate, right? And
correct.
Certainly knowing strengths is certainly helpful when you can go, you know what, that's just not my cup of tea. I'd rather get rid of that and give it someone else. Fantastic. So we always start with, what do you love about responsibility? Like, how does it serve you?
People know that they can trust me to get a job done. And that's both in the job that I do. Well, it's not 9 to 5, but the job that I get paid to do. And then I also do a lot of community work, whether that be serve on nonprofit boards or various activities that I do here in Nashville. And so whenever I'm asked to do something like serve on a committee, like say I'm often on the fundraising committee of a nonprofit board, that board chair or that organization knows that I'm going to go out and raise money. And along with that responsibility theme, you give me a goal, and guess what? I'm going to meet it, and I'm probably going to exceed it. Right. Just because that's how my mind works. I don't, it's not okay just to hit the budget. I've got to succeed the budget.
Sure. Well, and that's good. So if people can expect that from you, so like, is that how it serves others? Or what does it do for you? Like, what do you love about your responsibility?
What do I love about it? I'm a task completer.
Okay.
I'll show you. This is my little to-do list for today. And so
Okay.
I go through this daily, and I write one every single day. And that all ties into my responsibility. These are the
Right.
things that I have to accomplish today. So I
Right.
think it serves me in that um, I know I'll get the job done.
Right. Well, it sounds like it really helps you. I mean, it serves you in the fact of that accountability aspect, right? Like, you know, you're going to be
Absolutely.
accountable, you know, you're going to come through, and you're not just going to come through, you're going to go probably above and beyond what most people's expectations are, right?
Usually.
And I can see a little bit of that positivity later, like wanting to do more, at least especially for those people who are really counting on you.
Absolutely. And
Right.
I work in a client service business. I
Sure.
represent talent, so they're counting on me to book their tours, to increase their pay, and so that's how it serves me on a professional level.
Sure. Fantastic. And so on the other side of that, there's always the flip side. Where can responsibility get you into trouble, or how does it trip you up?
Way overcommit.
Yeah.
Way overcommit. I'm on too many boards, and I'm trying to figure out now how can I get off of a couple. Just because if I miss a meeting, I actually missed a board meeting this meeting because of a work conflict, and I had so much guilt tied into not being present,
Right.
uh, and that's where that responsibility theme comes in.
Right. Well, you said sort of, especially since you've learned about these talents and what you've been doing, you said you've gotten a little bit better about saying no. So it's a process, right? Like it doesn't have
Sure.
to happen immediately, but what has kind of helped you put up those boundaries and learn to say no a little bit more?
Well, I have no me time. I've also there's a theme I hear from my friends and my family. We don't ever get to see you. We don't get to hang out. I have a lot of family in Texas. I have a house in Texas, and my family will say, "Well, when are you coming to Texas?" I think I've been to my house twice this year since last
Mm,
Christmas, and so I'm learning to say no so that the things that really matter, which are the people, not the stuff to get done, I'm learning to say no so I can spend more time with the
yeah.
people I care about.
Yeah. I think that's something that, with responsibility, it's something I come across a lot in my coaching with responsibility is, you know, there's different reasons we have a hard time saying no, but people with responsibility really like, it feels like it's just a bigger challenge for that talent in particular to say no, because there's that psychological ownership, right? That the desire to satisfy and take control. And so, we often talk about, if you say yes, you're saying no to something else. And is it worth saying no to the other stuff to say yes to this, and using that as kind of a balance? And one of the other things, there was a study out there, and it was a study done towards diets, right?
Diets.
And for diets, for people who are dieting. And what happens is, we have a tendency, kind of our human nature is to not want to say no. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to do things, but that's obviously just increased tenfold for people with responsibility. And so if people on diets, they were asked to create personal policies. So it wasn't so much that they had rules about what they could eat or couldn't eat, but they were supposed to create sort of personal policies around their eating habits to change their lifestyle. And one of the things they do, so we explain this. So you go out to dinner, you've had a lovely dinner. The waiter comes up and he says, "Hey, we've got this amazing chocolate lava cake that's like warm and gooey and delicious. And like, can I interest you in dessert tonight?" And you go, "Oh, no, I'm on a diet. God, I'd love to, but I can't. Like, oh, thanks, but I really shouldn't." And everything you have just said says, "Convince me.
Right.
Tell me I can." Right. And so he's going to be like, "Oh, come on. It doesn't have any calories. I'll bring out 3 spoons. You can all share it. It'll be great. Like, but
Which
I'm
is
going to get you that
common.
dessert." Right. And you go, "Yeah, all right." Right. Like, and you do it. But if the person who was dieting said, "I will only eat desserts that I make at home so that I can control the calories or the portion size or whatever," right? If they say that, and then the waiter comes up and the waiter says, "Hey, can I offer you this delicious ooey gooey chocolate lava cake?" And you go, "You know what? I'd love to, but I'm on a diet right now and I can only eat desserts that I prepare for myself at home."
I like that.
he's going to say, like, he has no room to convince you otherwise. And it has a collateral effect of having other people think about the policies they put in place. So it could be in a work situation, you know what? I would love to be available to you, but after 6 p.m. is my family time. I will not answer emails until the following morning. You put it in your email, you let people know, because you might have a habit of like,
You know what? I have gotten better about that. And when it comes to commitment, I have a new rule. I call it the 24-hour rule.
Mm-hmm.
And my friends now make fun of me because I'll say, you have to give me 24 hours and I have to chew on it. Is my common response.
Yep.
So now those that are close to me go, oh, wait, I guess you have to chew on it. I said, absolutely, I'll have to chew on it. So I'm getting better.
Right. And it's those little things, right? You've put in a personal policy. I need 24 hours.
So you gotta let me chew.
You don't do that impulse and you let me work through whether I can do it or not. And so it's a perfect example of that personal policy versus a flat out no or yes.
Correct.
Right. And just creating those boundaries. And as you do that little by little, they have a higher effect, and that collateral effect of, and they're like, oh, well, if he's not answering emails after 6, maybe I should set a time like that. Maybe I should consider what I do. Right.
Now you've got my brain going. So I'm often asked by young artists if they can come in and talk to me and ask my advice. And so what I've learned to say is I'm open every day at 3 p.m. You pick any day at 3 p.m. and you tell me when you're coming, and that's when I'll see you. Because that's the only way I can manage all those requests.
Right.
And so, again, another personal policy that you made me just realize.
Yep. See, you've done a really good job. You're pulling in that responsibility, but you're setting those boundaries and setting expectations. Because the other thing that happens a lot of times, and we'll get into how it serves others, and you've sort of explored this, but responsibility is one that a lot of people can abuse unintentionally.
Absolutely.
Because when you say you're going to do something, people know you're going to do it, but nobody knows how loaded your plate is. You're the only one who knows how loaded your plate is. And so people tend to abuse people with responsibility without meaning to, but it's because they know they can count on you.
Yeah, I can give you a personal family example. When my parents passed away, all 3 of my siblings and I were executors of the will. Mm-hmm. But guess who did all the work?
I can only imagine.
Yet we were all 3 executors, and it's not that they didn't want to. They just said, "Jeff, you know how to do all this. Go do it."
Right.
So that's the situation where it comes up over and over.
Right, because people know they can count on you, and it's a way to say, you know, for people depending on positions they're in, it's a great way for people to say, hey, you know what, you know, thank you so much for trusting me. However, my plate is really full right now. And this comes especially when you have a manager or a boss who's continually putting things on someone and they don't feel like they can say no, is to be able to say, thank you so much for trusting me. I love that you love putting this confidence in me. However, my plate is really full. I have this, and this. If I add this, either something needs to move or drop off or delegate, or you need to give me a priority so that I can make sure that I focus on the right thing first.
Absolutely.
Right. And just bring awareness to the situation. It's not saying no, it's saying, hey, I'd love to say yes. Help me say yes. Or let me say no because you realize that I don't have the time. Right.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So just finding those ways to communicate without feeling like there's a conflict or just saying no, I think is also really helpful. So you talked about, so you've got siblings, they know they can count on you. So how have you seen responsibility kind of showing up throughout your life? Like when you were a young boy, a teenager, before you ever knew this was a talent?
Well, my siblings were often asked to do chores, but I was the one who just did them, like mow the yard. It's got to get done. The house has got to look good. But that's also tied into people pleasing. And the tricky thing about responsibility is you learn to place your value in that. So, I only have value if I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it sure does. Very interesting point. I like that.
Well, you often get into a career that relates to those themes and responsibility, doer, talent agent. I'm only as good as the last deal I do for my clients. So throughout my life, it's that doing part that's tied into responsibility.
Oh, I can see that. I can
Yeah.
definitely see that. And how does it show up in your family with you now? Like now?
I'm the organizer of all family gatherings. So if it's a holiday or a ski trip, it's, hey, Jeff, when are we doing this? Hey, Jeff, what's the plan? That's how it shows up.
Okay, I have a question for you. If someone else
Okay.
volunteered to do it, would you let them?
Yes, but
Okay.
that's because I'm learning to do so.
I was just going to say, because a lot of times you're like, I hate that I'm always the one to do this. And I'm like, okay, but if you had the option to give it to someone else, would you let somebody else do it? And there's
Yeah.
always that moment of, maybe.
But again, that's only been in the last 4 or 5 years
Sure.
as I've applied the theme approach to how I operate and think.
Oh, that's fantastic. So the next time it's like, okay, so who's planning the family trip this year?
Yeah.
Right? That's the question you ask.
Yeah. Y'all decide.
Y'all decide. You make it happen. I'll be there. You just
Yeah.
tell me.
I'm getting better.
Good. So if you would want to tell someone, and you've gone around this a little bit, I think, but very directly, if you wanted to tell someone who doesn't really understand responsibility, what it is, what would you want other people to know that could help avoid misunderstandings or make your life easier even?
Let me chew a minute. What I would want them to know with people that have the responsibility theme.
Yeah. So if somebody else doesn't have responsibility and just doesn't get that internal motivation or drive that you have, what would you want them to know so that they would have a better idea of what responsibility really looks like?
This may be a topic for my therapist. I feel actual guilt if I don't deliver.
Okay.
And that's a very real tape that plays in my head. Like I'll wake up at 4 a.m. going, "Oh, I got to get this done. I committed to it," and that can be personal or business.
Sure.
There's just a lot of guilt. Like I mentioned earlier, my family and friends will say, well, "I don't ever get to see you," and when they say that to me, I feel guilty because I've let them down. So I think that's the battle that's always going on in my head. I didn't show up. I wasn't there. And they're not saying it. People aren't saying it, but that's what's in my head.
Right. Well, and I would imagine that's responsibility. And I would feel that would be just emphasized by a relator, right? Because of the people that you're letting down, they're the people closest to you, or that you feel you're letting down.
And I think achiever ties into that because achiever, you want to please. It's either pleasing you or the people around you. So
yeah. No, I can appreciate that. Okay. So question now is, if you think about somebody, fictional character, famous person, who is someone that kind of represents responsibility the way you understand it? You could even think of a job role if that's easier. Sometimes it's easier to think like that.
Think of a what?
Like of a job role, like a role that just exemplifies responsibility in some way. Something we can get people to relate to.
This is probably not the level you're wanting me to answer, but I keep thinking about my father.
Okay.
And how much responsibility he took for the family and to provide. And I think that can be both mother or father. I think
Sure.
about parents. Being a parent is a responsible. You're responsible for these young people and the lives. And I don't know. That's what comes to mind. That's probably not what you're wanting.
No, that's okay. No, it's absolutely okay. It's because sometimes I think when we think about famous people, it can be kind of hard for certain talents.
Well, let me tell you how that plays in. In the career that I'm in, I have a lot of young people that work with me and for me. And so I'm always cognizant about what I say or do and how that could influence them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's how that responsibility theme shows up.
Sure.
I'm extremely careful about giving advice. Uh, I would rather they figure it out.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's definitely a way that responsibility would show up in that sense of being a role model, of
Yeah.
setting an appropriate example, setting appropriate boundaries,
Yeah.
doing that. So yeah, no, I can definitely see that. So in general, you said you took the test 4 years ago. One, I'm curious, did you let anybody else read your insight report, or have you had anybody else around you take the report?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm asking.
I tell everybody I know about it. In fact, you're going to laugh at this. The last 2 assistants that I've hired, I made them take the test before I made my decision. Because I wanted to know what their strengths were and how they, what their thought processes were. So yeah, I use it all the time. I actually lead a small group of about 8 young men, and I had them all take the test.
Nice. And in your family? Do you have your family take it? Anybody in your family?
Everyone in my
Everybody's
family.
Taking it. So what kind of reactions came up with that? I'm curious.
The comment usually is, "Wow, that makes sense. Okay, I get it."
Yeah, I always tell people it's going to be like, "Oh yeah, that's totally you," and then there's going to be like, "Oh, that's why you do that."
Yeah.
Like, oh, now you make sense to me, right?
Well, my sister, her top theme is empathy, and so it's been very eye-opening for her to understand, because she feels and cares and so upset when somebody else is upset. So I've watched how she's learned to put boundaries up related to that as well.
Right, absolutely. Well, and I think that's really good. So what would you want, since you already you're being a great ambassador and asking everyone about their strengths, what would you want someone who hasn't done strengths yet to know? What kind of value do you think it brings to them?
Well, you understand how you as a person thinks and operates, and those around you. But I think the key takeaway for me was learning to manage those strengths. We tend to abuse them, like we touched on earlier. And I think the takeaway for me was it's how I've learned to say, I got to chew on it. You got to give me 24 hours. So that's been the biggest takeaway for me. That it's not just a test and you're going to walk away and go, oh, it's a process that will make you better.
Right.
Simple.
Right. And do you all use it in the office as well where you work?
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how has that changed any of the dynamics there?
The same effect. Oh, that's why I do it that way. Oh, okay, I get you now. That kind of thing.
Okay. Did it open up the path to change any roles or do any shifting in how people get things done?
Well, I think the big takeaway there was there's not only one way to get something done. In leadership roles, you tend to think this is how it should be. I want you to do it my way, and that's the shift I've seen internally.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, is for people to understand that the outcome is truly more important than how you get there.
The process is
right.
Not
the process is, well, the process is part of it. The process is not as important. It's more important for someone to get out, right? I always say it's like, it doesn't matter how you shower, it just matters that you get out clean.
I like that. I'm gonna borrow that.
You can borrow that. It's the simplest way. And it only comes from a true story that someone actually once tried to tell me how to shower, that I was doing it wrong. And I'm like, how am I showering wrong? Like, how is that even possible? Right? So, sorry, my little one is actually here. He's gone a whole season where he hasn't been around, but he's on vacation this week. So
I'll break.
There's one. Well, technically for us, it would be spring break. Because
that's true.
we're the other side of the world. So yeah.
Well,
Um,
we're on fall break here in Nashville.
yeah, well, that's a great time. I miss fall. I miss fall so much back there. So fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your responsibility with us, for helping shed a little bit more light on what we do.
I'm happy to.
And as I sit here and put the sock on my son, I'm sorry. um, I think it's very helpful. I love that we're kind of rounding out the season with this talent. I don't know, it just feels right to do it this way. And I appreciate you taking the time. I know you have a very busy schedule, and thank you for saying yes and for sticking to it and being here with us today. And I want everyone to know that while this is the last episode of the season, we will be returning in the very near future with more interviews and more talent information for you on Unique Genius in 33. And we always have our daily flash briefings happening over on Alexa, which you can also look for on iTunes with Strong Communities, or on podbean.com, which is where our podcast is hosted. So thank you so much, everyone, for a fantastic season. Thank you, Jeff, for being a final part of it. And I look forward to seeing everyone in the very near future. Take care.
Bye-bye.